Hey y'all, how's it going? My name is John, and today I'm going to be explaining how to install Geant4 on a Windows 11 PC. So if y'all don't know, Geant4 is a very powerful modeling software, specifically for modeling particles as they go through matter. So to install it, I'm going to be going off of these instructions that I wrote on my GitHub repository. So if you guys want to follow along with these, I'll put this link down in the description so that you can get these instructions as well. Okay, so to install Geant4, the only way that would work for me is actually installing straight from the source code. So this becomes a little bit more difficult than just clicking on a file and automatically installing everything. You have to kind of do a lot of work. So there's 3 steps to be able to install Geant4 from the source code. Step 1 is install all the prerequisites. Step 2 is build and install from source. And step 3 is post install setup. Okay, so step 1 is install all the prerequisites. So there's 3 prerequisites that we need to install Geant4. First, we want the source code for Geant4. Second, we need a C++ compiler. We're going to be using Visual Studio for this. And then 3, we need a software called CMake. So to get started, I'm just going to download the source code. So we're here on the Geant4 download website. Go down to source code and just click download zip. Okay, once you have the zip file downloaded, before you do anything else, what we want to do is create a folder where we can keep everything organized. So for me, this is my directory. I have my users and my user. And then this folder, Geant4 tutorial, I'm just going to have everything in here. So that way you don't get anything lost on your machine and weird folders or anything. Okay. So first of all, what I'm going to do is take this download, drag it over here, and keep it in this folder. All right, guys. Step 2 is we want to get a C++ compiler installed. So a really nice tool for this is Visual Studio. If you don't have Visual Studio installed, you can click on this link to download it. So let's go here and yeah, just get the community version. Click right there and should start the download. Here we go. All right, guys. So once you click on that Visual Studio installer that you downloaded, it should pull up a window like this. So here's what I already have installed, Visual Studio Community. I'm going to click Modify. And here we're going to download the C++ workflows. We have desktop development with C++. So you want to check this box. All right, so check that. Then you also want to go to individual components and search for, let's see, what is it called again? MS build. Let's go back here. So if you search for MS build, check that box as well. Oops. Don't want to remove it because I already did it. Once you have that installed, you want to click this modify button at the bottom. All right, guys. So now that we have these 2 things downloaded, the desktop development with C++ and the MS build, we need to download CMake. This is the last prerequisite. Okay, so let's click on, if you go to my instructions, here's the website, or you can just Google it to get to the CMake download website. So we're going to go down here to the Windows Time 64 installer, click on that, and it's going to download this. And this is going to take you through the steps of how to install CMake on your computer. All right, guys, so we got the easy part done. We installed the prerequisites. Now we're on to the fun stuff. So we need to build and install Geant4 from the source code, right? So here's what we need to do. Step 1 is create the necessary folders. So I'm going to go to my directory where I have all my files. It's called Geant4 tutorial for me. Here's the path. Make sure you always use this folder because if you, I'll show you in the future when you're creating files and whatnot, you want them to all stay in this folder, right? So first things first, we want to unzip this. So I'm going to do extract all, and that's the right directory. So I'm going to click extract. Okay, finally my Geant4 got extracted from the zip file. So now we have this folder. So you're going to click on that, and then there's another folder called that. And here we have all these files and folders, right? So what we want to do is not this folder, change the name to source. Like that, okay? So that way it's not confusing. We have this folder with everything in it. This is the source folder. So we're gonna create a new folder called build. So I'm gonna click new folder. Just name it Geant4 v11.1.1 build. Okay, now that we have a source folder and a build folder, we can start working with CMake. Now, CMake is a application that helps install things, basically. So it's going to be really helpful through this whole process. So since you already have CMake installed, you can just go to Windows and look up CMake, and then you get this CMake GUI app. Click on that, and here's what the GUI looks like. So notice here up top, it says, where's the source code? And then right below it says where to build the binaries. So right here, we're going to find our source folder, put that in the top one, and then our build folder, put that down below. So go ahead and search those. One way to do it is just click on, let's do source first. Click on source, do this, Command C, or Control C, sorry. And then Control V right there. And there's your source. Then it's saying where to build the binaries. We're going to go back here to build. Control C. Control V right there. Perfect. Okay. Here we have our stuff. So now what we're going to do is click on configure. It says specify the generator. We're using Visual Studio, the latest version. So that's good. You can leave all the rest of this blank. Click finish, and just wait for it to configure. Okay, so here we are, my configuring finished. It says configuring done right down here. And we have these red rows. That's good. That's what we want to see. So the first thing we need to make sure we do is check the Geant4 install data. So that's this guy right here. We want to make sure we check that. That's going to make our life easier in the future. Next, we want to set our install prefix to a place we want it to be. So for example, if you look over here, we have CMake install prefix. It's by default in this program files folder. Now, I personally would recommend putting this all in the same folder we've been working with originally. So we can click on here and browse. We go to C, users, my username. Where is it? Geant4 tutorial. Okay, here it is. Now in this directory, I'm going to create a new folder and call it program files. This is just going to make our life a ton easier in the future, because to find some of the examples or some of the things we need to do, we want to make sure we know where this folder is. So I'm going to click on this and select folder, putting the install prefix at this folder. All right, and then finally, we want to change the configuration types. So these are all the types of configurations that Geant4 has. There's debug, release. The suggestion from the Geant4 website is to either use release or row with dev info, which has its release but includes the debug info if you want to create applications using Geant4. So personally, for this tutorial, I'm just going to delete everything except release for this one. All right, now that you've modified a couple of these things, everything else is good. So we're going to go down and we're going to click on configure again. It's going to take a couple minutes to configure or a couple seconds. Okay, cool. Next, these will all be white instead of red. I'm going to click generate. This will probably take a little bit. Actually, that was pretty quick too. Cool. And then finally, we're going to click open project. And what this is going to do is open Visual Studio. So click on that, and here comes Visual Studio. All right, guys, once you've clicked that generate button on CMake, you're going to get Visual Studio popping up. So here we are with Visual Studio. Here on the right is all the things that Geant4 has installed for us. So what we want to do is click on all build, and we're going to right click and click on build. Now, before I do this, I'm going to stop recording because it takes a ton of time and a lot of computer resources probably take about an hour to build everything. So let me just stop the recording, and then I'm going to click on right click here and click build. Hey guys, we're back. So here on my Visual Studio, it finished the build. So if you look down here, it says it took 53 minutes, so around an hour to build. So yeah, that's basically the longest, most time-consuming part of this whole thing. Now, there's one more thing we need to build, and you can see this in my instructions. There's one little bit that doesn't install for some reason, and it's labeled install. So if you go over here to the Solution Explorer, scroll down till you find install right here. The last step, we just need to right-click on this and click build. This won't take as long as the first one, but might take a little bit to install. Okay, guys, I'm back. So I just finished the install for the install. So down here, it just took about 5 minutes. So now we have everything all set up, and I'll show you what the install actually did. So I'm here in the Geant4 tutorial folder where everything's going to be located. Enter in here, and the install actually added some program files for us. So click on here. Now you see in the programs files folder, we have 4 folders. Bin, which is for the binary files. These are the DLL files and stuff like that. We got include. We got lib, just for the non-dynamic libraries. And we have share. And share is where we have some of the examples that we're going to look at in a second. So now that we've finished installing all the things we need to install, we need to perform the post-install setup. So basically, there's 2 things we need to do for this. Number 1, we need to add that bin directory to our path. And we need to create a new environmental variable for the Geant4 datasets. So first things first is we want to add this bin. So this is, again, in the program files bin folder. We need to add this to our path. So to get to our path, first we need to go in the Windows thing, and we need to search up environmental variables. So you start typing in environment, and you get edit the system environment variables. Click on that, and it pops up this window. So we want to go down to environmental variables, click on that. And here we see our environment variables. So here's our path variable. Now, path is used by tons of programs. If you've done any programming like Python, C#, whatever you do, you probably recognize this path variable. So if you double click on this, what we want to do is we need to add a new environment variable inside path for this directory. So I'm going to double click on this. I'm going to click on here, Control C, copy that, go back to here, and then we're going to click new and paste it in there. So here's our path to the bin directory. So now you click OK, and make sure you click OK on every single one of these windows, otherwise it won't save correctly. So I'm going to click OK there, and finally OK in here. So that's step 1 done. We got our bin directory into our path. All right, guys, so now that we have added the bin directory to path, we have one more step. We need to create a new environmental variable for the Geant4 datasets. So if you go down here, this will tell you how to do it. I'll just show you real quick. So here in that folder, program files, you're going to have a folder called share. Click on that, click on this, and go to data. All of these are your datasets, and we need to put these into their own environmental variable. So in order to do this, you have to go back to that environment variables window. So start clicking or start typing environment variable. There you go. And then we're going to go environment variables. And then instead of clicking on path, we just need to create a new one. So we're going to click new. Now, Geant4 is going to look for this specific variable name when it does its compilations and stuff. So we need to make sure this name is correct. So what you want to do is type Geant4 data dirt, like that. So that's exactly what it's going to be looking for. Now, for variable value, you need to get this data folder, Control C that whole path, copy that path, and then go back to here, and then variable value, paste it in there. So this data folder is what you want. Now just to close out these windows, remember you have to click OK, and then OK, and OK. Now that all the windows are closed, we know it's saved good, so we're fine there. At this point, everybody, the Geant4 is completely installed. Everything's set up great. Okay, guys, good job making it this far. So far, we should have Geant4 correctly installed on our computer. So if you want to end the video here, go ahead. But I'm just going to show you how to test and make sure. It's always good to just make sure you did it right, because if not, you're going to run into it later and realize you did it wrong. So we're going to go to step 4. See if Geant4 opens by running an example project. First, we got to find the example we want to run, okay? So we're going to go into our folder. Let's go back to the original folder. We're going to click here, go to Program Files, and we want to go to Share, Geant4, Examples. Find this Examples folder. Now we want to go to Basic, and here's all the basic examples. Now I want to do Basic 1. It's the very most basic. And then now that we're in this folder, if you notice, we have a text document called CMake lists. This will help us compile this example. So what I'm going to do is open up CMake again, the CMake GUI. There it is. And let's just do this to make it easier. Perfect. Okay. Now, one super nice thing with CMake is you just take this document and you just drag it here, copy it there, and then it autofills where the source code is and where the build binaries are. Source code, as you can see, is in the B1 folder, which is good. Build binaries is in the same folder. That's fine, but it's better to create a build folder just so that it's more organized. So that way the source and the build files aren't in the same exact folder. So what I'm going to do is type dash, and then I'm going to do build. This folder doesn't exist yet, but once I run it, it's going to create the folder. So now I'm going to click configure. And then it says build directory does not exist. And then should I create it? I'm going to click yes, and it's going to create a folder. Now Visual Studio is good, so I'll click finish there. And it's going to configure that for a little bit. Okay, guys, so my thing finished configuring. Now here's the screen that we've seen before. Now we're going to change a couple things. First of all, we're going to change this first one to release only, so that way it doesn't configure with all these different ways. We just want release. Now everything else looks good. I'm going to click on configure again, and everything turns white. Now we're going to click generate. Okay, generate finished real fast. So now I click open project. It's going to show us in Visual Studio. We're almost done, guys. I know this is a super long process. Here where I'm at, it's dark now because I waited so long for them to build and stuff. So we're almost done, Okay. All right, guys, now we're here in Visual Studio. What we need to do at this point is click here on example B1, and we need to change this to be the build directory, or sorry, the startup project. So right click on this and click set as startup project. Click that. Now, if we right click, now it's bold, as you can see. If you right click this, click build, it's going to take a little bit to build. It shouldn't take too long, but we'll see how long it takes. So that took about 13 seconds. So that wasn't bad at all. A lot better than the 1 hour one. So now our first example has been built. So if you look down here, you can see where my mouse is. It's going to tell us where it put the executable file, the .exe file that we can double click and run the example. So if you look here, it says it was put into the examples, basic B1 build release example. Okay, so let's go back to our folder view. Let's look for it. So it was in B1, it was in build, if I remember right. Oh yeah, there we go, release. There it is, example B1. And if you need the path for that, I'll show it on the screen right there. So there's that path. Okay, now we're going to double click on this, and if Geant4 is set up correctly, it's going to show a pop-up window. So here we go. Moment of truth. Awesome. There we go. Congratulations, we have successfully ran an example. Now, as far as obviously it doesn't look like much, and I don't know really how to use the Geant4 GUI yet. So stay tuned. Soon I'm going to post a video how to actually mess with the example, have it show something on the screen, show a particle in motion, whatever it does. But for now, it's showing a window. So that means that Geant4 has been installed correctly. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked it, and subscribe for more videos about Geant4 because I'm going to be working on it a lot for the next couple months. And see you later.